Hey guys, so today we are moving on to multiplying positive and negative fractions. And just like before, we're taking what we have learned in the past, which is multiplying fractions, with what we learned this year, which is multiplying integers. So to refresh your memory, we multiply fractions pretty simply. You can really just multiply straight across the top, multiply the numerators, and then multiply across the bottom, or the denominators. This hint though that I have is going to be really helpful before you do the multiplication across the top and the bottom. I definitely recommend that you cancel the common factors that are on the top and the bottom. That's going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to simplifying and just the multiplication in general. And you'll see what I mean when we get there. So combining those rules with how we multiply integers, remember a negative times a negative is a positive, and then if it's one of each, then your answer is negative. So let's just get to it. Just like we did with multiplying decimals, I like to decide whether the answer will be positive or negative right off the bat. So here we have a negative times a positive, meaning our answer will be negative, and then we can just kind of ignore it until the end. So there's no common factors between the top and the bottom. I can't divide out anything from both numbers. So really, just multiply across the top. 3 times 1 is 3. Multiply across the bottom. 7 times 4 is 28. And that's it. Make sure to keep that negative sign since we said that our answer was negative. And your final answer is negative 3/28. All right, moving on to this next one. We do have another negative times a positive, making our answer negative. And really, you could multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom, but then you have to do 4 times 20 and 5 times 21. You'll be working with really big numbers, and then you'll have to simplify at the end anyways. So to avoid that, we can divide out common factors. So I see that between the 20 and the 5, so those numbers on the top and the bottom, there's a common factor of 5 there. I can divide both of those numbers by 5. So when I do that, 20 divided by 5 is 4, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. So now I'm working with these new numbers, and now I'll multiply straight across. 4 times 4 is 16. 1 times 21 is 21. So you get 16 over 21, and don't forget your negative sign. All right, moving on to here, we have a negative times a negative. I know the negative sign's only in the numerator here, but remember it doesn't matter if it's in the numerator or the denominator or out front. This itself is a negative term times a negative term, which is a positive answer. Again, there's no common factors on the top and the bottom that can be divided. Oh, yes, there are. My bad. Yeah, there are. 2 and 10 have a common factor. I can divide both of those by 2. So when I do that, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that changes to a 1, that changes to a 5, and now we can multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1. 5 times 5 is 25. So we get positive 1 over 25. Our next example is 2 mixed numbers being multiplied. And just like with adding and subtracting, let's make those into improper fractions. Before we do that, we have a negative times a positive, so our answer will be negative. So we'll just keep that in mind when we get to the end. 2 and 3/5 becomes, well, 2 times 5 is 10, plus 3 is 13/5. And 1 and 1/4 becomes 5/4. Because again, 1 times 4 is 4, and then plus 1 is 5. So now we'll work with this problem. There are the obvious common factors here of 5 and 5. Can divide both of those by 5 to get 1. And now we'll multiply straight across. We get 13 times 1, which is 13. 1 times 4 is 4. So we get 13/4, which is our answer as a improper fraction, but I always want your answer to be in mixed number form. So to get there, 4 goes into 13 3 times. That takes you to 12, so you have 1 left over to get to 13. So 3 1/4 negative would be your final answer. All right, and then lastly we have a word problem. It says a plane descended. Hopefully that screams negative in your head. 1 3/4 miles in 1 minute. So how far does the plane go? What's the change in height after 3.5 minutes? So this is how far it goes in just 1 minute. And if I wanted to figure out how far it would go in 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 3.5 minutes, then you need to multiply this amount by however many minutes you need, which in this case is 3.5. So this is the problem that we're setting up to solve. Let's make it a little bit easier. We know our answer is going to be negative. 1, because the plane is descending, and 2, because we have a negative times a positive. So let's make these improper. 1 3/4 becomes 7/4, and 3 1/2 becomes 7/2. Again, 3 times 2 plus 1 to get 7, or 1 times 4 plus 3 to get 7. So then when you multiply here, there's no common factors to cancel out between the top and the bottom numbers. So just multiply straight across to get 49/8. And then to make that a mixed number, 8 goes into 49 6 times. That takes you to 48 with 1 left over. So 6 1/8 is your answer, but it is negative to show that it descended 6 1/8 miles. All right, so there you have it, multiplying positive and negative fractions. Time for you to practice.